Assalamualaikum and very good evening. I bid to Dr. Rozamri and all dear friends. Alright, today our group will be presenting, which is Group B, will be presenting on dairy industry waste, which is cheese, on how process and waste of treatment. Alright, before we start our presentation, I would like to introduce all of the group members, starting from me. And my name is Muhammad Faris bin Muhammad Ilham, and my matric number is 192470.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nuzulaika binti Kamrul Zaman and my matric number is 19246.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Azhar binti Azmi. My matrix number is 192278.
Hi, my name is Jayashree and my matrix number is 195372.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Natika Abdi Zakaria. My matric number is 192442.
Hi, my name is Karini Sanaima binti Ma'arshid, matric number 192405.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Amir Hassan bin Abu Bakar. My matric number is 192475.
Okay, firstly, I will present about the production of the cheese. Uh, first, first process is pasteurization of milk. This process reduces the spoilage organisms and improve the environment for growth of starter cultures. And cheese produced from raw milk require aging for a maximum of 60 days. After pasteurization or heating, the milk is cooled to the temperature needed for the growth of starter culture. Next is standardization of milk. The milk should be free of any off flavors, microbial contamination, antibiotics, and chemical contaminants. The standardization is a process where the milk is subjected to centrifugation for the clarification of the small exogenous particles or somatic cells. This step generally optimizes the protein and fat ratio of the milk to produce superior quality cheese. And next is inoculation of starter culture. The starter culture is then added to the milk and subjected to 90 Fahrenheit for 30 minutes to ripen. Different cheese requires different starter culture. Like for the production of cheddar cheese, the strain of Streptococcus bacteria are being used. The ripening step allows bacteria growth to start the fermentation process, and milk must be free from any antibiotics for the bacteria to carry out the fermentation. The presence of antibiotic may cause retardation in the growth of starter culture and production of acid that will finally produce inferior quality cheese. Thus, the proper growth starter culture lowers the pH of the media and develops more flavor in the cheese. Next is cutting of curd. This process allows the coagulum to ferment till it reaches at pH 6.4. Then the coagulum or the curd is fractioned into small cubes with a cheese cutter. This step allows easy separation of whey out of the curd. The coagulum fraction into small cubes will produce low moisture cheese, while the large cubes will produce high moisture cheese. And next is the cooking of the coagulum. The fractions of coagulum are then heated up to 38 degrees Celsius for the desired time that usually differs in the different types of cheese. The cooking involves stirring of the whey curd mixture to obtain a compact mass of coagulum. This step is necessary for the control of acid production by starter culture, to suppress the growth of spoilage microorganisms, and to influence the curd texture. It also controls the amount of moisture content. And next process is draining the whey. After cooking the whey curd mixture, drain out the whey from the vat. The curd obtained after the removal of whey appears as knitted mat. The knitting of curd is a step which contributes to the texture by modifying the curd particles to adhere by producing a compact mass of cheese. In this step is where the whey wastewater is obtained. Next is pressing the curd. Pressing of curd. Generally, hydraulic pressure is applied to the coagulum. In cheese with an open texture, this step can be skipped. In cheddar cheese, peeling is done before pressing, where the fraction of curd are placed on the top of each other and flipped periodically by a process commonly refers to a cheddaring. This step expels more whey, provides compactness and characteristic shape to the cheese. The next process is molding. In this stage, each type of cheese takes its familiar form as a solid block or wheel. The cheese is put into a basket or a mold to form it into a specific shape. At the same time, the cheese is also pressed with wake or machine to expel any remaining liquid. The next step is ripening during storage. The cheese is stored in a cool and dry place under controlled temperature and humidity until the desired age. It can be aged for several months to years. This step allows enzymatically induced changes in the protein and fat fractions of cheese by contributing to give a typical flavor, aroma, aroma and texture to the cheese. And lastly is packaging. Packaging includes the labeling of the brand's name along with the nutritional facts, market price, manufacturing date, expiry date and others. Next slide please. Next is a characteristic of cheese effluence. Cheese effluents exhibit COD and BOD value, leading to a high consumption of dissolved oxygen in water bodies. The lactose and fat contents can be considered as the main responsible for COD and BOD. With their very high concentration of organic matter, these effluents may create serious problems of organic burden on the local municipal sewage treatment systems. Normally, this effluent has a low pH, and due to the total nitrogen and phosphorus contents, this effluent pose a consideration risk of eutrophication in receiving water, particularly in lakes and slow-moving rivers. Eutrophication leads to many water quality problems, including increased purification costs, interference with the recreational and conservation value of impoundments, loss of livestock, and the possible sublethal effect of algal toxins and animals and humans. In addition, cheese effluent composition may be considered as deficient in terms of nitrogen components for aerobic or anaerobic processes. So this cheese manufacturing industry is responsible for three main types of effluents. Cheese whey resulting from the cheese production, second cheese whey resulting from cottage cheese production, and the washing water of pipelines, storage and tanks that generates a wastewater called cheese whey wastewater. This effluent also contains cheese whey.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Amir Hassan. So for my part, I will explain about the type of waste produced during the manufacturing of cheese. So the first waste for the manufacturing of cheese is cheese whey. This is the main unavoidable byproduct from cheese making. The characteristic of cheese whey is a greenish yellow liquid that can be considered a milk that is free from casein and fat. So there are approximately 9 liters of whey will be generated for each kilogram of cheddar produced. So it means that this process of making cheese will produce a large volume of waste. So the casein precipitation will lead to the formation of two types of whey, which is the acidic and sweet whey. The type of whey will be influenced by the type of milk used, such as from the cow or goat. So, the cheese whey is considered as important pollutant because of the high organic load produced, which contain lactose, and the volume is generated. The high sodium component in cheese whey give problem when operating biological digestion. So, from this point, if I have said that lactose is very high amount in have caused the high organic load in the cheese whey, this is because the lactose content in the cheese have caused organic load because of the large number of microorganisms that cannot directly use the lactose as a carbon source. So the second type of waste product produced from the manufacturing of cheese is the second cheese whey. Second cheese whey is produced when the cheese whey, the first one is being used in the cottage cheese production. It has a 60% of dry matter content from the original cheese whey. It also have a high organic matter content and have acidic characteristics. And the final and the last waste is cheese whey wastewater. Cheese whey wastewater presents similar characteristics with cheese whey but contain lower level of contamination. The cheese whey wastewater can be generated from three different procedures. The first one is when the cheese whey did not being used in the cottage cheese production and directly added to washing water. The second one is when the cheese whey is being used in cottage production and the second cheese whey is being added to washing water. And the third one is the cheese whey and cheese whey wastewater are valorized and not added to the washing water. So generally, cheese whey wastewater contain present acidic characteristic. So I pass to another members on how to treat cheese whey wastewater.
Okay. So there are several treatments for cheese wastewater. So the first one, I'll be talking about anaerobic digestion. So what is the anaerobic digestion? Is that it's a natural process which microorganism breaks down into organic materials. Organic materials in this issue is in this case is that coming from the whey itself. So such as food scraps, fat, oils or greases, or industrial organic residuals and sewage sludge. So anaerobic digestion is a process where it does not there is no air or there is no oxygen used. So that is why it is called as anaerobic. When microorganisms break down or eat the organic materials, biogas is generated. So the material that is left after the process is called digestate. Next slide. So there are pros and cons using anaerobic digestion in treating. So first, let me talk about the advantages. It's a source of renewable energy, reduce of greenhouse gas emissions, recovering value from waste. From this anaerobic digestion, biogas is formed. So biogas is rich source of electricity and heat. Next, let me talk about the disadvantages. The first disadvantages is that it is less stable process, no heat production in the reactor, technically more complex compared to the other treatments, and also cleaning and maintenance difficulties. Also, there are few types of anaerobic digestive systems. So the first one is upflow and aerobic sludge blanket. So basically, upflow and aerobic sludge blanket reactor is a single tank process where wastewater enters the reactor from the bottom and it flows upwards. So a suspended sludge blanket filters and treats the wastewater as the wastewater flows through it. Second type of anaerobic digestive system is the fixed film anaerobic digester. is essentially a column packed with media, such as wood chips or small plastic rings. Methane forming microorganisms grow on the media. If you can see, there is this slanting like kind of wood that is called the manure slides. And the digesters are also called attached growth digesters or anaerobic filters. And finally, the third type of anaerobic digestive system is sequential batch reactors. So sequential batch reactor is fill and draw active sludge system of wastewater treatment, where wastewater is added to a single batch reactor and it is removed at the final reactor, which is the fifth one. So the first step will be filling, substrate added at the filling, and then second will be reaction, third will be settle, where there is no air, and fourth is decant, also there is no air, and fifth is idle, that where the sludge will be wasted. So that's all from me. I'll pass to Atika now.
Okay, next I will talk about aerobic digestion. Next. Okay, to complete the treatment of cheese whey wastewater, commonly we use it required two steps, which is the anaerobic degradation or digestion, and then we follow with aerobic digestion treatment in order to lower the final organic load of the effluent so it can meet the discharge requirement. Okay, next, aerobic digestion use oxygen to degrade and convert organic matter in the cheese whey wastewater into biogases such as carbon dioxide. Okay, next is the advantage. It's only required short hydraulic retention time (HRT) and it can be done at the room temperature, which is at 22 to 24 degrees Celsius, and it has excellent effluent quality in terms of chemical oxygen demand (COD) removal. Okay, next, the advantage is limitation in oxygen transfer may occur when dealing with highly polluted effluents. So aerobic digestion is not appropriate when the cheese whey wastewater has high organic load. So this is why we need to do the anaerobic digestion first, then we follow with the aerobic digestion. Okay, next. Type of reactor use. First, we have a non-woven rotating biological contactors, an RBC. It can withstand relatively high strength effluents due to its improved oxygen transference, and it has biofilm on series of the discs. The disc will rotate slowly while approximately one-third immersed in the wastewater. As it rotates, an attached microbial population form a film that becomes several millimeter thick. The rotation brings the biofilm into the contact with wastewater for removal of organic loads, and then it become and then the rotation will bring the biofilm into contact with the atmosphere for the absorption of oxygen. Okay, next. Next, we have integrated bioreactor membrane system (MBR). The application of membranes unit for solid separation can minimize the principal disadvantage of conventional sedimentation when dealing with high biomass concentration. The sludge will enter and the water will pull it through the membrane to produce the disinfected or the filtered water. Okay, next. Next, we have a jet loop bioreactor (GLBR). It has high oxygen transfer and mixing, turbulence capacity, small size and low cost in terms of installation and energy consumption. The wastewater was pumped and the air was drawn into the wastewater through the air inlet. The aerated wastewater passed to the degasification tank where then it will be connected to the treated effluent tank. Okay, next. Lastly, we have the combination of jet loop and the membrane technology, LMBR. It able to tolerate short time changes in the inlet organic loads, and the process is the wastewater and the air enter the inlet, and then the aerated wastewater are pumped through the membrane unit, and then will go out through the waste sludge outlet. Next, I will pass the presentation to Faris.
Okay, next I would like to talk about coagulation and precipitation process. And next, okay, first is what is coagulation? So coagulation basically is the destabilization of colloids by addition of chemicals that neutralize the negative charges. And the chemicals are also known as coagulants. Usually, it usually it is a higher valence cationic salt, for example, like aluminium ion, ferrum ion, and etc. And coagulation is essentially a chemical process. Okay, so how is it works? So first is the as we can see in the diagram, the coagulant is added into the impurities, which is the wastewater, and then the coagulants, which is in the when it in the wastewater, it will form precipitate by trapping the impurities, and the precipitate and trapped impurities settle to bottom of the uh, tank, and the positive charge of the coagulant neutralizes the negative charge of dissolved and suspended particle in the water. And when this reaction occurs, the particles uh, bind together, or we know as coagulate. So next, so why is it important of coagulation process? Uh, it is to coagulation removes many of the particles such as dissolved organic carbon that make the water difficult to disinfect. Thus, it is able to remove some of the dissolved substances, which is less chlorine must be added to disinfect the water. So next, and the next is oxidation process. Next, okay. Oxidation process is not recommended when dealing with the raw cheese with wastewater. Thus, it is suggested to perform better as a post-treatment process after biodegradation process. And the Fenton oxidation is introduced as a post-treatment process leads to a significant chemical oxygen demand removal, or COD, which is final COD is equal to 20 milligram per liter, using a high concentration of hydrogen peroxide, which is 0.5 molar, and 2 gram per liter of iron 3 iron 3, and a pre-treated effluent with low COD, which is 0.5 gram per liter. Next, and in research studies, Martins et al. 2010 reported that the single ozonation and catalytic ozonation have also been tested as a post-treatment, which allows a very good COD removal using an ozone concentration of 10 milligram per liter. Next. So the advantages of oxidation process is firstly they have high reaction rates and mineralization of organics, meaning that it can convert the organic metals within the wastewater into a stable inorganic compounds, for example like water, carbon dioxide, and salts. And the disadvantages is of this process is it has high reactants concentration, which leads to the high operational cost. And next is the removal of residual peroxide may be need to be considered, as we all know it is harmful to humans. So a careful design of the system must be introduced. Next, I would like to pass to Naima on how constructed wetlands.
So thank you to Faris. Now I will proceed with the constructed wetland, which is one of the way to treat the waterways. Constructed wetland is a engineered system built for sewage treatment utilizing natural processes of soil, substrate, plant, and microorganism with a synergistic combination of physical, chemical, and biological function. It is a semi-natural, cost-effective, and had a biological wastewater treatment technology designed to mimic the process found in the natural wetland. So next, so the classification of the constructed wetland, it is the first one is the surface flow, and the second one is the subsurface flow, which is for the subsurface flow, it has a horizontal and vertical flow. Next, so this is the example for the surface flow, which is for the two above, it is the free flow surface, and for the below, it is the floating flow. Um, For the surface flow, it comprised of the shallow bed cultivated with the aquatic macrophyte, which removal of various pollutants is achieved as wastewater to be treated flow through the vegetated bed and substrate media. Next. So for the subsurface flow, the first one is for the vertical flow and the second one is for the horizontal flow. Uh, for the vertical subsurface flow, subsurface flow, the water will flow through the vertical, and for the horizontal, it will flow through the horizontal line. So next. For the hybrid system, it comprises the two flow in one system, which the benefit is the different system will complement each other. For the first picture, vertical flow and horizontal flow, and for the second picture, the first one is use the horizontal flow, and the second one is vertical flow. So next. So this is the advantages and disadvantages of the constructed wetland, which is for the advantages, the first one is it has a simple operation and maintenance. Second, it can be integrated attractively into landscaping. And the third one, high removal of contaminant. And for the disadvantages, the first one, um, the mosquito, especially in free water surface system, and the second one is the space requirement for the wetland. Now I will pass to Zulaika.
Okay, thank you, Naima. So now I will be presenting the last way that we treat our cheese whey water, which is by using agricultural use of the pre-treated cheese whey water. Okay, next. So what is agricultural use? It has been integrated into comprehensive land and water management plans, taking into account water supply, wastewater collection, reclamation, and reuse. And then the evaluation of the, according to Rivas et al. In 2010, the evaluation of physical characteristic of the sludge of the cheese whey water resulting from the basic chemical precipitation with lime show that they are high content of organic matter, nitrogen, phosphorus, and pH, which makes these characteristics are very compatible with the agriculture use, especially for the correction of the acid soil. Okay, next. So how does it work? Basically, the cheese wastewater is first treated with by using precipitation. And then when you get the pretreated cheese wastewater, it will be brought to the plants or the agriculture use for that we want, and it will either be using by fertigation or irrigation. And then we will evaluate them by chemical characteristics by using by looking at the leaves, stems, and roots. And it may be operated as a land treatment system to the treatment cycle and considered as the nutrients recycling part of the loop. And this irrigation can raise both agriculture productivity and the living standard of the rural poor has long been recognized. Okay, next. Okay, these are the advantages of reuse of agriculture. One is that it is low cost sources because we are just going to use back the water that we have been used to treat the yeast, and then it can provide nutrient because it has a lot of nutrient in it, and it minimizes of the application rate of conventional fertilizers since it already have nutrients in it. We don't need to use the fertilizer, and it can give improvement to the soil and crop productivity from the fertilizer of the cheese water. And the high content of biodegradable organic matter and nutrient be used as growth factor for the plant. So the plant can grow more bigger and healthier. And then it also allows this system to be a zero discharge system, which makes that there will be no more waste as we were gonna use it for the agriculture. And then, for example, in the article by research, they use tomato fruit. So the tomato fruit fertigated with that water and pretreated and use of the pretreated of cheese water by basic precipitation present a viable culture to be developed. Okay, next. However, there are some disadvantages to it. The advantage to it is that it's high salinity, which means that the salt um, it has high salinity, which is a factor, and the use of the plants with moderate to elevate the salinity tolerance is required. So since it's a limiting factor for agriculture use, it can be used as fertilizer in fertigation after it's done a correct addition with irrigation water, which it's need to be adjusted with the adding of more water to it, since the content of salt is too high, and according to the crop tolerance, and it is according to the crop tolerance and nutrient needs, and the salt content is a serious drawback at the time of the cheese water reclamation for the agriculture purpose. Okay, so I think that's all from us. This is the references, and that's all. Thank you.